Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 3 of the Blockchain Bay podcast. My name is Chris, and today Joe is interviewing BFG Neil, who is a well-known member in the Helium community. With this project, TrackPack, it aims to give a real-world use case for the Helium network. With TrackPack, you can track assets across the world as long as you are within distance of a Helium miner. It's a really cool project, and I hope you guys do enjoy this episode.
Welcome back to another episode. We have special guests today from across the pond. We're going to do a two-hour live stream. First, we're starting off with BFG Neil, and then later on, we're going to have some guys from Crypto Slate. That's the podcast that I did a week ago. They'll be coming on the show to talk about what they're doing. But Neil, let's start off with you. I think you're a familiar face.
I think everyone knows me at this point, right? Hope so. Anyway, I'm trying to be like that anyway.
Yeah, so thanks for coming on. Now, I seen your post on Twitter about your product that you developed on the Helium network called TrackPack. Of course, I have one of my own, which I made a video for, so thank you for that. I like the product. I like what you're doing here. You have a lot of experience in the industry, so just give us a background on yourself, what you've done as far as that you're a dev, and then you got involved in Helium, and then why you decided to go forward with this project.
Sure. So, I've been a developer for a number of years, and the last business that I run was software as a service. So when I sold that business, I was looking into the world of what's next, for me. And I obviously looked at blockchain technology. I originally built a Ethereum miner following Voscoin. He was great in the time when GPU miners were big, and it was great advice and help getting to that point where I could build a rig. But at that time, I heard about Helium and the low power nature of it, where when you get to GPU mining, you realize you use so much power and so much of your profit goes towards the power usage. Helium sounded like this amazing thing that was low powered. And it was also solving some of the problems that Bitcoin has, true decentralization. It was putting a node in everyone's houses. Bitcoin, you can do that, but to earn from doing that, you need to put an ASIC miner in, right? And it just doesn't make sense. Like, I love the idea of a Raspberry Pi that could support more than one project. And that's a thing I would love to see in the future for Helium, support more than one project on these nodes, because we have this global decentralized network of independent nodes in people's houses, which is perfect. But yeah, so I come into the Helium world, and obviously when I get into a new project, I study the hell out of it. So I started using mappers to work out how good my coverage was. I had some success locally. My first 3 hotspots were 350 meters, 400 meters from each other. So they were working pretty well. But then my friend was 2 miles up the road, and I was like, oh, right, but I'd love you to get into this project with me. And, I had some difficulties getting that distance. So what I then did was like, right, look at my setup. Let's get a mapper. Let's look at the signal quality. What does the difference of a meter in height make? Indoors, outdoors, cable, antennas, everything got really deep. And at that time, one thing I noticed was the relay thing. Hotspots, when they first come out, you needed to have ports inbound and outbound for them to work, to them to be able to talk. And if you didn't have the ports open, you would never beacon. So I noticed that Helium wasn't showing on the site, and we started up a service called Helium Status. And that's where it showed you the relay and a bit more information about it. And yeah, at that point, we had like 50,000 subscribers. It was quite a big website, and quite a lot of people were using it at the time. It was definitely the option.
Yeah, there was a lot of features. I remember it. I used it quite a bit. I told people to go there before, and then we had light hotspots and all that went away. You didn't really have a need for it.
Exactly. And it was at that point,
I think it was a great product.
Yeah, I met the other 2 business partners of TrackPack at that point as well. Rob is a cloud specialist and a back-end specialist. So we worked as a really good team, and that was our first project. I mean, for that project, that was the project I learned React Native, which is React and React Native, which is what TrackPack's written in. So I'd done other programming languages before, but they're a bit old school PHP and JavaScript, and, it was last world, and here's was my first project with React. I mean, there's nothing better than diving into a project to learn a bit of coding and the language, because you have a goal in mind and you can build it. And that's what Helium Status was. So when they moved to like hotspots, that was the point where we needed to pivot, right? So what do we do next? And we talked about doing hotspot firmware. We could definitely do that in the future if people are interested. Setting up firmware that enables you to run other projects as well, sort of what COTX is doing, but it would be at a subscription. Obviously, we would need to build something where we would eat be able to eat by building it. So there would be a small subscription to it. We've talked about it, but we decided at the time that the most helpful thing that we could do for the network was build an app that is so easy to use that you could actually go to your neighbor and say, here, track your cat, track your car, track anything. And they wouldn't have to know about cryptocurrency. They wouldn't have to know about Helium console and add-in devices and decoders and integrations. And so with the TrackPack app, you literally just scan the QR code on the back of a tab and it's added to your account and you start using it. So every tab and every tracker comes with 30 days of free service as well. So you can start using it straight away as soon as it arrives and really experience what the power of the network is, how big it is and how good it is. Which we need more of, right? That's one thing at the moment. There's not many companies that are building solutions like we are and as quick as we are as well. So what we built was in response to the feedback from the people, saying this is too complex. I need something simple. Data Cake, Uberdots, My Devices. They're all great systems, but they do require some knowledge, right? You need an implementer to build that kind of system for you. Whereas TrackPack, you could literally just buy one of the trackers and get started with it. And that was the aim, basically. So it was a bit of education for the network. I don't have a background in asset tracking. I built a business from knowing what you could do on Helium, which is a different way around for me than most would do it. They see the power of the Helium network and how you can do long range, low power sensors and then take their existing systems and build onto it. We're a brand new company built from the network. It was my next business,
Yeah, and I like that. That's something I've always emphasized. Now, I admire all the people who are doing the do-it-yourself projects on the network and showing others how to get involved and do the really techie stuff. But that's really not what we want to show to the broader Helium audience who's just trying to figure out what this network is for. I mean, with the businesses developing on this network, it should be as easy as your app. You scan the QR code into the app that supports it. Everything's taken care of on the back end. If you need extra features, you go through the API, which is one of the features that you have with your product.
Yeah, and that's one thing we're hearing from a lot of companies is that we've developed a full system that's white labeled as well, so we can build apps for them. But at the end of the day, they just want access to the data. We have an API. A lot of what we've seen before is, here's a little project you can run, go start up a VPS and you can install it. But again, that's too much for most people to understand. So what we've built is a great base for any sensor. Right now, that only sensor is asset tracking and it sensors on a map, but we have a base and a system in place that's could take 1 million users tomorrow, but we could also change it to show temperature, humidity, man down detection, for tilts detection. We can do anything. It's just right now we're a small team, so we're focused on one sensor. A big part of what I'm hearing from feedback from people on the network right now that are building for it is there's a lack of investment. They've got these great ideas and I hear them all the time, and it's so easy to get excited about an idea in Helium, but there's no funding for it. There are grants if you want to open source everything, but if you want to do something commercial, they can't help you. They can't help you with the grant. So having the investors on the network is a bit of a sticking point for us as well. Right now we've got some big ideas, but they're just a little out of reach because we need the funding to do it. And that's the story over and over that I'm hearing from a lot of folks.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I like having people like you on and as well as the Australians, although it was something more political. The point is that there's people who want to build on this network, who have solutions, who are going to spend the time and investment into a product that is going to utilize this global LoRaWAN network. I mean, I'm sure you have better ways to spend your time and your money if this thing was just a joke for mining crypto. I'm not of that opinion. Now, of course, there's always going to be some dissent in the comments as to all the other solutions that are available. And I've also drove this point home about the utility of LoRaWAN, how long range it is, and how resilient it is. But I guess, can you give us the benefit of using one of your devices over something like an Apple AirTag? For those in the audience who are just hearing about this, they're probably wondering the same thing.
Sure. So an Apple AirTag is a Bluetooth low energy device. So it needs Ring doorbells, other iPhones. So I always say that it's great if you are in a city center or the suburbs generally, that you'll find iPhones and Ring cameras and things. But when you start going out into the sticks, it will just get lost. What I always say is that you can lose your bag on a train, for example. If that train goes to the depot and there's no iPhone devices, you wouldn't know it's there. Once it returned the next day, you would be able to find it, but it'd be a long time before you realize. Whereas these devices are always on, so wherever there's helium coverage, there is service for this. So you know yourself. So if you put a hotspot up that's really well on the peak of the hill, you could probably cover 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers for sensors, where an iPhone's only going to do a few meters in front of it. So you have to make sure you're in range of one of those things for it to work, whereas helium's just got the opportunity for bigger coverage. And yeah, the technology's great. I mean, it's not too bad at the moment. You've seen what the tabs are like, right? They're not too bad. They're pretty good, yeah. But we're talking about the future of it now, the next stage for it. So that's what we launched today. Last night, an article about how we can ditch the GPS chip and use trilateration and AI to basically reduce the size of these things. Here's an example of what we've built. For example, this is our new tracker. We wanted a base model to work from so we can control the firmware. But you can see on the back of it, that is the GPS antenna.
Can you? I'm gonna disconnect my my VPN. Just continue explaining, and I'll be right back.
Sure. So yeah, so this is a tracker we built. It's very, very small, but you have to remember this is just a tracker. We need a battery that connects to it as well, and then a case as well. So quite a lot of that footprint is the charging circuit, and obviously there's a thick GPS antenna on the back of it there. Really, if we could lose that GPS chip, we could half the size of it, put it with a coin cell, and we would literally have an Apple AirTag sized device, with a coin cell battery on the back that could be replaced. But the thing is that we can have that thing last for a month and work all over the world. That's amazing. But what we do for that basically is we use the signal strength and multiple packets enabled to work out where it is in the world. And then we run it through a TensorFlow AI model to precisely pick it, and we can return an accurate location. There's an article up on Medium. It's on our Twitter, which is just trackpack.io, if you want to follow us on there. And you can see in the article that we got some predictions in there that you can see. And it's crazily accurate right now. So it could mean that we can shrink the size of even this device, which is, fairly small compared to other devices, already. Yeah. We could then half this as well, which is, just crazy. So yeah, it's a fun time. It's really nice getting into a project for helium that seems to be making so much difference. We've got some pretty big names that want to work with us, that want to use this technology. One of the biggest ones at the moment is Brompton Cycles. They make these folding commuter bikes, so people will, ride them to the train station, get on the train to work, and then ride them to their place of work. So they're not, they're in city centres. They're not, in the middle of a field somewhere. It's like the perfect use case. And what they're doing is they're putting the trackers under the seat, and what they're using it for is anonymous usage statistics. So they have these rental lockers all over London, and these trackers are on those bikes. So what they can see and what they can give to the councils is usage statistics. so they can know, oh, well, maybe we're best putting a locker in here. It's best spending our time putting more lockers over here, and this is how the usage is, so they can report all of this. And they've just loved the data. You know, they've been trying to do this kind of system for 6 years, but every time they've done it, it's the power requirement's nearly impossible to run a SIM card based tracker. But then if they could, the cost for installation and the gateways to support everything is just astronomical. Whereas for Helium, we do it for $40 a tracker. So it's just almost 10 times cheaper for them, you know?
Mm-hmm. And what's neat is that even if you don't have coverage in in some location for whatever reason, maybe there's not hotspots there, or you have sensors down in the basement or in a hard to reach area, you could always throw in a data only hotspot where it's already configured for the Helium network. It's fairly cheap. They're about 150, give or take, but the onboarding process is simple. They don't participate in proof of coverage, so you'd only earn from what you make of data credits. However, it is very convenient of a setup for if you're actually deploying this stuff in the field. So,
yeah,
go ahead.
You're dead right. I mean, that's why we always say to it, we've got some trials with companies in, and they're saying, you know, every now and again, oh, you know, I'm losing a little bit of coverage here, delivering to a depot. And we were saying to them, you know, one well-placed antenna can do 50, 60 kilometers away from that depot of coverage. So you can fill in those gaps really easy. The one thing I say at the moment is, though, there are some pretty good deals out there for full hotspots. So they're almost as cheap as data hotspots at the moment. And another good one is to check eBay and things. You can actually get them quite cheap. So it depends on what you want to do. If it's for data only, obviously you just not messing with POP can mean less goes wrong. But I always say, you know, you might as well learn a little bit.
Yeah, just make sure if you're going to buy a hotspot secondhand, it's not on the deny list.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
how you deal with that. It's taken care of at this point. But
the easiest way is to ask the buyer for the hotspot name, run it through Explorer and check it. I mean, the great thing about eBay is you have the buyer's protection, so you generally always win as a buyer, don't you? So.
Blade has a question for you. Can I? Yep. Can he put one on a dog?
Yeah, I mean,
so
I actually run. Go
ahead.
I run one of these on the dog at the moment. It's a bit big, but I think of it as a testing device. What we've really built is a small tracker that we can work into a collar. Basically, this device here is a little big. A lot of it's a charging circuit. There's obviously pins for programming and things. So once we get this size down and once we get the finalized, we can put it into a collar. The other option that we wanted to really explore is harnesses as well, because there's a bit more room for the tech in one of the side pouches of a harness. So we're definitely wanting to cover dogs and cats. We want to get this small enough that you would be able to put it on a cat. The thing that's holding us back at the moment is the GPS is so powerful that it drains the battery. If we can get rid of the GPS and use this trilateration system that we've built, we can have coin cell batteries. So they will be small, they will be tiny, and the cat would just look like it's got a tiny pendant on it, you know?
Yeah. So I'll ask you a couple questions. Well, first, what other type of products do you have, if you can share, do you have in mind for TrackPack? Will you be developing any other type of sensory devices for other needs, or are you just developing specifically trackers right now in all shapes and sizes?
Yeah, right now we're just focusing on trackers. Obviously, there's a lot of changes that some people need. We've been asked about temperature readings, also about things like man down, so tilt detection on helmets and things like that. So that it's just all basically what I call functional tracking. There's basically tracking, which is just working out the location, but then there's functions on top of that. You know, I want to know if the temperature goes, or I want to know if the tilt sensor's gone, or I want a push button to notify me if someone's pushed it that they need help. Things like that. That's what we're mainly focused on at the moment. We have kind of like an internal division called TrackPack Labs. And the idea there is that, I tried to source feedback the other day on Twitter just to see what people want to exist on Helium. If we can put a door sensor app out there and it helps people onboard door sensors, and it takes us a couple of days to put that kind of thing live, I mean, we're all for it. So if people have use cases, please come and talk to me. We're happy to help. If there's a business model there and we can see the clear potential for it, we will help as much as we can to get that thing live. Right now, Helium needs data usage, not full stories about who's using the network. We took our time before we mentioned Brompton. We have live sensors with them. We didn't want to kind of give off that example that Lime or any of the other ones gave. We actually have usage from these companies. We have sensors live now, and things are growing. We got a lot of interest.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Lost my train of thought here. There was something else I was going to say on that note. Oh, yeah, within the Helium community, I mean, what is part of what's special about crypto projects in general, but something that is kind of cutting edge in its own way? You would classify Helium's as Tippins, I guess, Web3 potentially. Regardless, is you have people who stood up a bunch of hotspots or Helium miners for this network. Now you have a group of people inside who are saying, hey, reach out to us. We can help you design solutions. We can help you build. We can build them and provide them to you. You just got to let us know what you want, which is always
exactly
neat. It's really a community crowdsourced effort.
Exactly, and I couldn't have got where I did before the Helium community. There's a guy that's very special to me, Jazz Williams. He was helping me write decoders and things and work out what I needed to send and how that I formatted everything. I didn't know this before. I've never worked with sensors before, and I've got to the stage now where we as a company are building hardware and writing firmware, and that we have AI prediction models and things. I didn't know this technology before, and it was only through the help of my peers that I've been able to get so far. So, that's a big thing that with TrackPack that we wanted to do is the whole system's white labeled. So you can install it, run it in your own business. All you would need to do is put up a promotional website. Maybe, if you wanted to track ATVs and you wanted to start an ATV tracking business, make sure you have relevant content about ATVs, do your research on what tracker fits the ATV and say why it's so good for the ATV, talk about the features that are particularly useful for them, and start a business and use it through Helium, earn a bit of money with us. I want to help the community grow, and I want to help data usage grow. So we can only do that together. And it's one big thing that hotspot owners need to realize. And I think people are waking up to that idea that you're never going to earn a lot from the data transfer of one sensor, but the power of us all having sensors will mean that our price of our HNT will rise, right? So even though you may think that one sensor will never earn you that much, what you're earning in POC now will be worth more if we all grab sensors, right? There must be at least 150,000 of us owners, hotspot owners, right? It must be more than that now. If we all bought a sensor, we'd have 150,000 on there, which is way more than what it is now.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, well, it would probably double the number, maybe.
Exactly, that's the whole point.
I don't know. You can't really tell the exact number of sensors on the network, but there. Last time we got a roundabout number, there was I thought over 100,000 sensors on the network at this point in time.
Well, it's difficult because we don't know roaming providers how many sensors they have. But one stat I do know is that roaming is the largest data user on the network now. So there are more people roaming from using other networks than there are Helium sensors. So there are a few, and they are growing, but it's just at the moment more is coming from existing.
Can you break that down to the audience? What you mean by roaming, specifically on LoRaWAN, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there are networks that exist like Senate, Actility, I think is one, and there's another few. And basically they enable roaming on Helium. So if you're not in range of one of the Senate gateways, it will roam over helium, and they will pay helium for that data usage. So most of the time when they're installing an area, they'll install a sensor, but oftentimes when the sensor moves, like an asset tracker, it will roam over helium. And what's happened right now is that roaming has overtaken plain helium sensors. So there are more sensors from other networks than there are helium, adding more credits and spending more money. So
yeah, which
that
is
makes
huge.
sense.
That's a big step.
That is a huge step. I mean, there are things holding them back for sure.
Now, I think the next big step. Well, you beat me to it. Chirp stack, where along with the migration to Solana, the helium it's standard LoRaWAN, but the way it's built out on the back end was meant to be more decentralized. And from the way I understand it, they will be taking Chirp stack and adding some modularity and features to it. So we still have that decentralized modular network, but built on something that is more standardized.
Yeah. That's it. Sorry, my dog's wandering in the background. But that's it. Right now, Helium took the LoRa name server software and wrote their own version of it. They've tried to keep it to spec, but it's missing some features. It's not as fully featured as ChirpStack. There are options for you to carry on using console, but what's exciting for me is things like ChirpStack can be used. You can also technically use the TTN networks version as well. That can be installed and run, or you could write your own and run it. This idea of open LLS. But what ChirpStack really brings is the ability to use Class C devices. Another big one that I really like, and it needs some work, is that there's device profiles. So rather than going to go find a decoder, you could just type the devices, type in, and it will automatically put it. And you can even pick which version of that you're using. So, one of the big things I found at the start when I bought my first sensor, which is a Dragino sensor, that I had to work out what version of firmware was installed before I could know which decoder to use. And then, I had to update that to get to the latest to use it. But if we were using ChirpStack, I could have just picked that version and run with it much quicker, and it will just cause more people to want to use the network. I mean, there are networks out there, there are public networks, LNSs running, but they just don't have the coverage Helium has. They've tried to do it for years, but the problem is there's just never a reason to expand them beyond where they're being used. People weren't going to just install TCN network gateways in the middle of nowhere unless they were using them. Helium did solve that problem. It's an amazing thing, and so many new businesses can exist. And I think that's the biggest potential for this network. So many new systems can exist because of Helium. I don't think we'd have a lot more, switching over. I think it's new businesses like TrackPack, for example, that can exist because of the Helium network that we're going to see the massive growth in.
Yeah, I certainly agree there. As far as, so we have some other people talking about random crypto in the space. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But there was a comment from Dave saying, why hasn't anyone gone into the grow room business with this setup? So we'll use this as an example. Let's say someone wants to, if you know what all is entailed there, or just basically like monitoring crops or monitoring their room or humidity, or temperature, etc. Can you give us a short rundown if someone wanted to develop their own products for that? How would you go about that?
Yeah, really, I'd work out what is important for the crop. It depends on what crop. You can look at light cycles, watering cycles, and really you can automate all of that. I mean, there's a little bit of a stick in that auto watering without Class C means that you would have to run timers on the watering rather than waiting for a downlink to stop the water. Otherwise, it could just flood. So. But yeah, I'd really look at what you need to gather sensor data-wise, what you need to activate. Can you activate For example, water in, or is there a vent on the property that you need to, bring the humidity down or the temperature down or increase the temperature by closing them. Once you've got that kind of metric, then you can install it, basically run a really cheap proof of concept. So, maybe install a soil moisture sensor, maybe install a humidity sensor and a temperature sensor, and just try and go with basic tools. A big part of that is come to the helium community and talk with other people. They'll be able to get you going with how to start this kind of thing. And once you have a proof of concept, that's the point you could say, right, I have one installed. Can I go install this somewhere else? And can it work the same way there? Once you've got it for a few places, you realize there might be some slight differences, or there might be some complications that you hadn't thought of, or features that you needed to exist on top of that. But don't spend a lot of money. Just get it out as cheaply and as easily as you can. Start with a rack development kit or a seed development kit. Try and get the basics out and prove that there's a concept here and it's repeatable. And only at that point would you start thinking about what we've done, like with creating an app or creating a business website for it, prove the idea, and then take it to the next stage. And another big thing I'll talk about is that we obviously did a proof of concept for TrackPack, went on Helium Hacks Happy Hour, talked about it, and we got some small funding available for us to start TrackPack. So if you talk about your ideas, share your projects, and people will share for you. They love seeing new sensors on the Helium network. At that point, you might find funding. You might find people that are interested in giving you help. Don't go it alone. There are enough people on this network that will help you.
Yeah. So, is there anything else? I want you to get the full end to end for your product before we start going a little bit, outside the lines on the stream here. We can take callers if you'd like to. We can chat a little bit more. You can stay till the end of the hour or take off, whatever you'd like to do, Neil. But I appreciate you coming on and talking about this.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions as well. So let's talk about anything. I'm not sure I'm that relevant in other cryptos, but you can probably drag me up a little bit.
Yeah. So, well, I was going to add Dave, but he got up and walked away. So, see, Shane M writes, a coming $10 tracker with free or super cheap data is a game changer. We're going to track everything in the future.
Yeah, I mean, right now, looking at this tracker that we've built, this is a sub $30 tracker with battery, with case. I mean, there's obviously some production costs to go in there that take it a little higher. But if we could drop that GPS chip, we really think in bulk we can get it under $10. I really do think that changes the game. It's so cheap that you just don't think about it. It could just suddenly be implemented in everything. I mean, we've had some crazy people, crazy use cases. Ask us.
I'm gonna have to look into the trilateration, because some of the way I know how that worked out was extremely difficult to nail down, and I think Helium has a few issues of their own with like hotspot assertion places and how that's a little inaccurate. But like you said, it's the AI model, so I'm sure there's flexibility there. Now I'm going to add Dave to the stream in a moment here, and I think he may have questions for you. But Dave, welcome to Network Bit Stream. You're gonna.
Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Dave.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, guys? You guys can hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. I was wondering how much data can the chipset transmit, and what would be like the continual monitoring rate of the data?
Yeah,
like if the battery life, like you said, it has a built-in battery life, so obviously there's going to be a capability to expand that. That's not very difficult. You know what I mean? What's the voltage of it? 5.5, I'm assuming.
I wouldn't know the voltage, to be honest with you. I'm not the hardware guy, but I can tell you.
Do you have the battery there? Like, can you see the battery? Like, what's the battery voltage?
We literally, this doesn't have a battery, and this one's actually like This one's like a 540 milliamp hour battery, so it's a very small battery. I mean, this for me, tracking the dog. I walk the dog 2 hours a day. That dog. This lasts for 2 weeks. But if you were constantly moving around with this thing, a day or so,
See, like the use case I was thinking about personally is like my side gig that I'm currently medically retired from, but still on call. Just fixing everybody else's problems. Is I'm a master grower and a grow room engineer for the cannabis industry in Canada. We do large scale grow room and grow room designs. Like personally, it's just me, but like I have my own company that does it. We work with companies like my biggest corporation that I have right now is Canopy Growth Corp. They encompass, I think, 30 different medical licenses in Canada right now. And when I started there, they had this agricultural system that cost them, what was it, like $700,000 to set up 3 grow rooms for monitoring. We're talking like miles and miles and miles of RJ45 cabling. Wow. It's like, are you high? I literally, when I walked in there, I ripped apart the master grower. He got fired. This is at the open house. Ripped him apart. Went in the next day, ripped out the entire grow room system, replaced it all with Arduinos and Android tablets that were on the outside. And like the Arduinos, I was able to do the pH monitoring. I was able to do the humidity, the temperature, the light. Like I could get the PAR and the spectrums. I could make sure that the wind was fluctuating, right? You know what I mean? Like I had fan controllers and stuff. What would be like the lifespan on one of those units, like that you're going to be releasing with the built-in battery, I guess, if I was to do constant or like say 15-second interval monitoring?
Yeah, I mean, generally, like on the trackers, we'd like 30-second uplinks, minute uplinks, 2-minute uplinks. But if you're moving into a world where you're monitoring soil moisture and stuff, I mean, obviously it's longer times, right? 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or hours or half hours. So when you put a decent AC and 650 battery in, and depending on the place you're growing, is it outdoor, indoor, you can put solar panels and they'll last a whole year on a little tiny solar panel like that. So, but generally, you're talking years of battery life for a target like that. And like you say, no cables to run. You can really be doing it. You could have an actuator on vents. You can have an actuator on fans, power.
Reach out to me through Joe after the podcast.
Sure.
We should collab on something.
It's one of those projects that I built. One of the first sensors after building a mapper was building a pH monitoring sensor in the garden that was powered by solar. Just to see what it did. And, it also had temperature and humidity in it. So putting that data and having it on a little solar panel like that lasted all year.
Oh, yeah. I got you. I just think about like just like an injection mold process where like you have one of those cheap little, like one of the cells off of panel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
On top of it. And then you have the sensor that hangs off of it and like a little mount that you could put it. If you're doing it in an indoor grow space, the lighting alone is going to produce enough lights. Yeah, exactly.
So that's the kind of panel that I was using in the garden that lasted all year. That was more than enough power for it. So, it doesn't even cost anything in electric to run it. So,
and if it's under HID lights, like in an indoor grow space, you're still talking like 12 hours at least of light every day of like the highest intensity light that a cell could experience.
Sure, exactly. No, it's really interesting.
That's what I mean. We should talk about working on some.
It's just one of those things that like there's so many use cases for LoRa, but there's not a massive amount of people that know how to build a full system. I want to kind of like educate people on like being able to do that and offer services, but some of it does need, specialization. Like I don't own a grow house. I wouldn't know exactly what you need to monitor. So you bring that experience in and maybe we can develop a little system or a little prototype of building it, But that's what's lacking in the community is working together to build these solutions. We need more of that. I've got this solution that needs monitoring. How do I get there? How do we help them get there quickly?
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Well, I do want to push the envelope on 619 OTA's idea here for some sort
I'm not in the YouTube chat. I apologize.
No, he talks about it regularly, sometimes in the Discord and YouTube channel, whatever, but it's a great idea. It would be nice to see a dedicated catalog through Helium of the different types of devices that you could utilize on the network and who supports those types, like what companies are currently selling them, link to the website, this, and
But
I think that
if
shows.
If there's an access node to the network that's accessible through a Raspberry Pi, then you're talking anything.
It's one of those ones, Joe, like that you
like
really
literally anything. You could
really
monitor
is.
the reflection of your mirror in the morning if you really wanted to.
But it's one of those things that we shouldn't rely on Nova or the foundation to do, though, Joe. You know, we should be building that kind of site. That is in itself can earn money from advertisements, from product placement, from product reviews. That in itself is a great idea, but it's just manpower, that's all women power or anything power that you know to build that kind of solution. You know,
I might be able to access some of that manpower.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great little site. I mean, we talked about doing it before, calling it Helium Reviews, actually tested sensors and see how they use and what information you need to get them on the Helium network, what providers are best to use them with. You can start building a really nice catalog, but yeah, it just needs time and effort. And yeah, I think a lot of people will rely on Helium and Nova to do that. And it's just, they are so spread thin as it is that we need to provide those solutions for them, you know?
Yeah, Joe's got to send me a helium miner to set up the network for my farm.
Do it.
All right, you got it. One of the things I wanted to cover, the transition to Solana that's currently taking place. I want to know your guys' thoughts on it.
Incredible.
Either way, I'm not really too bothered by it. Do I really care that much about Solana? Not necessarily, but I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think they're as bad as people make them out to be. I know, Dave, you and Akiba had something on your website about that, a podcast about it as well, which I listened to some of it. But I want to hear both of your thoughts on Solana.
I think Solana is a great project. I think the fact of all this FUD is hilarious. I think the fact that they like they showed their funds, like they have 50 years of funding to fund the project at its current size in their own coffers. So like it's FUD. It's FUD. It's FUD. Like if I had extra money right now, I'd be buying Sol left, right, and center. Not financial advice. but like there's so many good projects that are like that.
Might be great. That might be great financial advice because Jim Cramer says not to. I don't know.
Buy it. If I'm talking to you, Joe, as like my homeboy, then I'd be telling you I would be putting at least 20% of all your investments into it.
Okay, let's not get crazy here.
I'm not. No, like I'm saying, if you were to say like the way I was investing because I'm a miner is I would take
but you're
my
being
month.
serious here. You like Solana that much?
Yeah, I like Solana. It's one of like 4 coins currently that I have a bag of in my hodl. That's like one of 4. And yeah, if I could be mining it right now and be paying the bills, I would be. But I can't. So I mine various other coins and projects that mine me enough coins so I can pay the bills. Like
it's currently difficult,
well, currently just off my 10 3070 rig, there's 10 3070s and 2 6800s on it. I've made $1,400 in the last week and a half just off that rig. And it's mining a coin that nobody's heard of that I actually have an interview with the devs coming up called Nexa. And it's a solid project. It's actually backed from the what's it called? Bitcoin Unlimited or Bitcoin Ultimate or whatever. Those guys, so like the Bitcoin Cash or BCH. Yeah. Those guys kept trying to implement optimizations to the network that the Bitcoin Cash team was just like kept shooting down and shooting down and shooting down and shooting down. So they said, I catch and went and made Nexa. And Nexa's been just like a powerhouse. Like we just went up, I think like 40% today in value. Like there's only one exchange that's dealing with it right now, we're getting listed on another exchange. We're just trying to get the liquidity. I say we're like I'm being part of it. That's like it's that miner mentality that's going to make this coin successful. Like the project is solid. It's a layer one. They're offering up to 100,000, I think, transactions per second.
Well, I've heard quite a bit about Nexa lately. So real quick, I want to get your opinion, Neil, on the Solana transition. We'll get into the other topics, of course.
Yeah, no worries.
But you're more inside of Helium. You're a moderator there. You have a lot of, I mean, you see all the conversation that's taking place. You're in the events and the community chats. What is your thoughts overall?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be, in Discord and chats with Helium Foundation and Nova, they obviously can't talk about price. So it's always difficult for me to get my views across about the move and everything.
Can I just say subtly he agrees with me?
No, just to say, I mean, it scares me a little, the move. I've got to be honest, the move scares me. The biggest problem we have on the network right now, here's Helium, on the Helium network, is that the only real funds that are being hodled are the HST rewards. So generally, they won't sell their earnings. So nearly all of it is being sold all of the time. So when we move to a network that people are a bit scared of, and they hear about these things, that they're worried, so they don't hodl. And that's what we really need to help the price increase, that people are hodling and not selling their coins. So the perception of the network is so bad that it worries me to move. But generally, when you actually look at the technology, when you look at the community base, when you look at how many developers are there that have this mentality of chewing glass. So let's just build it. Let's just keep going. Let's keep these solutions going. Let's build it. The pace that they have is exciting and it's great. And to think that we could be a big deal for Solana is incredible. You know, I've always seen it from the start. The Solana team and the Helium team are very close. You just can't beat that. They have always been close. So it just makes sense. Solana wasn't around when Helium launched. So
it's kind of how
Helium did
business
their
is
own.
done in any
exactly.
event. So, I mean, people want to talk about backroom deals in politics, but look, if you've consulted with, another business 5 years ago and they fit the bill then, and now they're going to fit the bill and you got a good relationship with them.
Exactly.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense from that standpoint. Now, there was something else on the note of Solana where one of the big arguments is it's a VC-based blockchain. So I get it. I certainly get it. But
you've got to look at it. You've got to look at it now that we've just cleared out Sam Bankman-Fried from having any interest in Solana or any involvement.
I mean, look, this is the point I'm trying to make. Is it's kind of like when you send non-political people into politics, hoping that they're going to do what's right for you. Where it's like the decentralization cult in crypto. Everyone wants to be decentralized and away from the powers that be. Well, just look at what happened with Ethereum. Did Vitalik end up being our friend in the end? Did he do what was necessarily right for the Ethereum network? You can make a case both ways, but it's the same thing. Just because you're going to start with a network that maybe is more, philosophically in your lane, it doesn't mean it's going to end up like that in the end when they see the dollar signs. Just a thought.
I mean, that's one thing I always say, and I think Helium could help Solana a lot. We can have a lot of positive influence. I mean, name me how many cryptos there are out there that actually have real world usage. And I mean, look, this is on a crypto network. Right now, this physical thing that I hold in my hand is on a crypto network and powered by a crypto network. This is not the promise of usage. This is not the promise of development of solutions. This is actually real world solutions right now. So I think we will drag Sol up quite a bit, when we go forward. What they're doing looks fantastic. The community over there are fantastic. The events they put on are fantastic. The technology is great. And the decentralization is improving all the time, right? They've got 2 different validators now, right? They've almost got 2 different validators produced by different companies. You can't get more decentralized than that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Real quick, anyone in the audience, I left the call and link pinned. So we got about 11 more minutes. If you do want to call in and chat, if you have some questions, you can also leave the comments in the chat. But Neil, you'll probably be taking off in about 10 minutes here. And then the other gentleman, Akiba, will be coming on, and that will begin the second hour where we discuss crypto slate and crypto in general. But one of the things I'm wondering, Neil, from your standpoint, in Helium, there's a lot of other talk about the different networks that are being stood up as well. GeoNet, WeatherXM, HiveMapper, Demo.
Yeah.
I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but
there's a few more all the time, isn't there?
Yeah. Do you have your eye on any of them in particular?
I like WeatherXM. Obviously, they just got botted when they went on sale, right? So everyone got really long wait times, and we're in crypto winter, so buying hardware right now is tough, right? But yeah, I do like WeatherXM. GeoNet, yeah, to an extent. I think GPS and GNNS is the old way of doing it a little. But the ideas are good for existing systems.
So Patrick Gian would like to ask the question that I've answered for him before.
Sure.
What problem does this exactly solve? Patrick, are you referring to the Helium network, the LoRaWAN network, right? Or are we talking about moving to Solana?
I think he's talking about sensors, so let's just go based on that. And I'd say that Helium just means that inanimate objects can be tracked finally. Really, tracking before was for something that was expensive, but really we've seen use cases from skip hires to onion pallets was another big one, bikes, objects. You can really track anything that makes a massive difference. Like, great use case that I was always told about was onion farmers have to use food safe containers. This one particular business that we talked to was losing £300,000 worth of containers every year. So with a few trackers for next to nothing, they could save themselves that much money. And the only thing that was stopping them was SIM cards are too power hungry, and you just can't afford to track an onion crate. Whereas if we can get these things down to $10,
outrageous.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a bunch of SIM cards.
Exactly. And if you look at what nano things are doing or what we're doing with technology going forward and trying to get these things smaller and cheaper, then it can start making sense. But a big one that I love for asset tracking and talking about is this idea of proof of location, proof of presence. So with the Helium network, without using GPS, we can tell you that something is where it says it's meant to be and where it is if it moves. So that can enable things like smart contracts to be solved. So decentralized delivery, for example, or if you were in charge of storing, I think one of the other companies on one of Gristle King streams was saying that, if you're a whiskey investor and you were storing whiskey barrels and things, you could put a tracker on that whiskey barrel and know where it is and prove that it's actually safe in the,
was that
warehouse.
The Helium competitor? The competitor?
The competitor? No, they were actually using Helium, but I think most of it was their main project was on Sol. So
because I heard I heard the other wannabe competitor with overpriced hardware was trying to do the same thing.
Right.
Did you see my videos about them?
There's a few networks trying to take on what Helium are doing now, isn't there? But
it's not. It's the other ones are all right. It's MXC that are really the turds in the punch bowl.
I just could never do that. I could never do that network. The second I saw that the gateways at $100 worth of hardware were $2,000, I just knew what game they were in. They're in the hardware game,
I had a misjudgment for a moment there and figured, hey, I might not get my Helium hotspot, so I'll get one of these. Got my ROI, but aside from that, what a waste. And you guys can watch the video. It's quite entertaining. I am going to bring in Akiba.
Hey.
Welcome to the stream.
Hello.
How's everyone doing today?
Good day, buddy. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
So
really interesting conversation, guys.
Yeah, we'll keep the conversation going for the next 5, maybe 10 minutes, Neil. Whenever you want to take off, you can. Yeah, but then we'll
keep in mind helium. I'm sure he has some input on the combo.
I do want to do, before we begin the next segment, a hard cut where we do the formalities and introduction, because Chris and I, we are cutting this up for his Blockchain Bay podcast, and I also want to get dedicated video to you guys. And Neil, we already have one for you, so
sure,
we'll all be good here.
Sounds good.
Go ahead, Akib. Was there something you were going to say?
No, I would just say I really want one of those things for my dogs. I think the options that are out there at the moment, as you say, all like SIM card based, and they just like really don't work. Or they're Bluetooth based, which just don't seem to really make sense.
Like,
we have this network, like you were talking about, sorry, just to finish quickly, that one of the biggest things that people keep asking me, obviously I'm a journalist in this space and also do some consultancy as well, is like, oh, is crypto dead? Like, what's happening when people just look at prices? And they completely miss like this core infrastructure that is still building, that is still growing. And it's like, it's a meme, but the infrastructure is still early. This is all in beta really still. And we're finding real use cases. And I think as much as there's pros and cons about, say, the Helium network, the fact that there is a massive network there with proper infrastructure, with obvious use cases, I think it's phenomenal just as an achievement. Whether it ends up being the thing that survives or not, I think it's one of the best use cases for like a crypto ecosystem coming together to build something amazing.
And it is. It just takes the people to get behind it. You know, the only reason that this network is going down in price is because people don't believe in it. If we could get more people to believe in it and show more usage, and that's something we as a community need to do, then we could build this into something massive, you know. It just takes a little bit of effort from everyone. I mean, we kind of need the crypto bros that just want to earn from hosting a hotspot. You know, we need those people, otherwise we wouldn't get a global spread of hotspots. You know, we need them as much, but to get them to earn more, we need more people that are willing to put the effort in to build up the services. You know, and it just takes effort, and there's a few of us right now, and the more are welcome. You know, I'll always help train people up, but we need people with use cases to step forward and say, I've got a use case, I can drive sales, help me build a solution, you know.
And like I said,
I'm not my miner back online.
when it comes to Helium, I'm not listening to the crypto bros that are, they stick their finger in the air, figure out which way the wind blows that day. It's people like Neil, Travis, Leo, people who've been in the industry, building on the network, that find utility to the point where they feel that they could build a coherent product for their business on it. I just don't understand where the disconnect with some people are. It's like they need that immediate the immediate result. And I think so many people fail to realize that like crypto is not like the stock market. You look at the stock prices and you can get a pretty fair gauge of where the confidence and value is in that company. But with crypto, I mean, it pumps so crazy once every 4 years. And I just had a video that I just posted yesterday that we cut out of another live stream Travis was on, actually. And we went over 8 different factors that took place for Helium in 2021 that all those had a little bit of an effect on the price. In one way or another, they caused speculation or upward pressure on the exchanges, setting that price to what it was. And I just see that so many people don't understand the context of it, because now they're saying the same thing's going to happen to these other projects that have way more of a maximum supply of tokens. And it's like people, they just don't understand. They don't. And I try my best to drive the point home, but
do you know, a lot of that is just because I'm really surprised that it always surprised me. Helium is a lot of people's first crypto. So when they see the price going down, they just think, oh, well, this network's trash. But they don't really know about the rest of the market. They're not seeing everything going down, you know. So they think this thing's dead. And this is just a time that builders build, right? And we'll get better.
personally, why I haven't built on the network yet is because I ordered an abundance from various manufacturers and
I
waited
bet. Yeah, everyone
2
did.
years.
Yeah,
2
it's
years.
fucked, isn't it?
And people who I turned on to these manufacturers were getting their stuff, and I turned them on like a year after I'd already been waiting. And I'm like, oh, you're in a queue from
That
this and that,
sucks.
and it's like, what are you talking? Like, how? What?
It
And
absolutely
it just
stuck.
makes
I mean,
zero sense. But like, I mean, thousands of dollars tied up for 2 years, and then I had to fight with my credit card companies to get my money back, and it was just like psycho.
It was
Yeah,
just
that was
unbelievable.
such an unfortunate situation, and it caused so much FUD for the helium community. I mean, it was really everyone's hands were tied in one way or another. The problem that we really seen is that you're not going to get a lot of companies that are necessarily going to manufacture for a crypto project or really work with a crypto project, because there's still a lot of stigma around it, and they don't know if there's really reliability there in that market. Now we're seeing some good companies come along like Seed Studio. They're excellent. Bobcat, they had production in the past for different products, but they've been an outstanding manufacturer. And what we had were people who had a really great development expertise, and some of them did own a hardware shop, but not that would be able to scale to the size that it needed, right in the
Exactly.
middle of the chip shortage and pandemic, where everyone was having issues getting hardware. So there was mismanagement there was some dishonesty, but I don't think that was a completely blatant scam, and it's really
What?
hard to say.
It
I
wasn't
get it.
the network's fault.
It
Yeah,
wasn't on
And
purpose.
that's what I gotta say is it's not the network's fault. And it's more than likely because there's like 2 manufacturers out of the 4 manufacturers of
Do you know
this
it's
kind
the
of
ties,
silicon
yeah.
product that were making them. And then all of them were signing contracts with all these other helium miners. So they were only going, oh, well, we can only give you 1/10 or 1/100th of your order.
Yeah. That happens so bad.
And it just
So bad.
screwed it. Like it screws the miners though, like because it was the miners that were buying them. Like it was the GPU miners that I knew that were buying them. I knew hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them that had bought them. And when that happens, you're taking down a core infrastructure of the network. So unless you're a dedicated helium person at that point, you're not even gonna bother.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's sad. It sucks because like that's why I said Joe's got to send me one so I can set it up at my farm so I can start building with it.
You know, I mean, like it's like Rack and the cow chip situation. Cow chip just sold without confirming that Rack could actually produce that many. Nebra, for example, didn't realize they can't get Pi 4s and had to go with Pi 3s. And they thought they could buy the concentrators from Rack, but they couldn't. They had to go source another manufacturer. They didn't test well enough. So when they rolled out, they were just horrible. And it just all hit at a time where Pis are in short supplies because there was one manufacturer for a clock on the Pi. And that one manufacturer had a warehouse fire right in the middle of COVID. So, you know, supply went ridiculous and they had to scrounge around and find parts and build solutions, and things took years. And really, they've had no comeuppance from that, but we've turned a lot of people away from helium because the situation's so bad. So
when I started with helium, you were still able to modify the Linksys routers.
Yeah.
And then they nerfed that to instead go with the manufacturers. So then you had other guys that had these like that people were paying to get like the modified routers. They were paying like $500, $600, $700 to get them.
Yeah.
And then now they don't do anything. Like they don't even route.
I think that will get better. You know, I think the network will get better and people's earnings will improve. I think we're on that way, but right now,
I think helium as a project is solid, and that's what matters. And it's just like there were fumbles at the beginning with manufacturing, with like second resellers and like everyone pumping all these sales. And then it's just like, I don't know. I still believe in the network. I just need a miner. You want to send me one? Let's go. You can get the cash. I don't care. I'll just freaking throw it up my tower.
Maybe Joe
Gives me
has
something
one
to
in
play
for
with.
this time.
We'll
I'll
talk
follow.
after the stream. I need to sit. My back's killing me.
I was going to say, Joe, shall I head off then? If you're going to talk to these
If
guys,
you'd
so
like
it's been
to.
an hour. Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Neil.
no problem.
Thank
If
you.
anyone
Yeah,
wants to get hold of
we'll
me, I'm
link up.
everywhere.
Yeah,
So,
we'll link up through Joe afterwards. Have a good one, man.
no problem.
Nice talking to you.
Nice talking.